accommodate as much as I could. We can go into questions if that's easier. Obviously, there's a lot of different things to say, but I'd rather answer kind of what you guys are looking for right now.
What are the most positive things you see in your team right now that give you that positive look at your team rather than the objective negative?
Yeah, we're practicing well. I don't go home from practice saying, man, this team just doesn't have it, or this team isn't doing the things that we'd like them to do. We practice well. If even amidst some of those really big losses, and the margins of those losses, we practiced well. Like yesterday, we practiced well. So we just have yet to kind of do it that way in the game. So I feel good about that. I usually think that's a precursor to good things happening on the court, and I feel good about that.
Coach, obviously pretty emotional after the last game on Tuesday. Had time to step back, take a breath, and just kind of,
Yeah. Henry got to me. What can I say? Henry's got that magic touch. He's been doing this for a long time. He knows where to probe and where to prod at the right time. I told my team, or I told our guys yesterday, I don't have a problem with a lot of things. There's a lot of excuses that can be made up for our record or this or that. It was a game that I personally expected to win and wanted to as such. And I think it was just the way that it went down. I just felt like we didn't play with the kind of emotion I would have liked. And that was kind of called out by somebody, and it struck a chord with me. If somebody said we were poorly coached, if somebody said we couldn't make shots, if somebody said something along those lines, it probably wouldn't have bothered me as much. But, when Henry kind of asked that question, it struck a chord, it hurt, and I reacted the way I did, and it's probably about the only thing that could ever really get me going that way, and it's the same thing with these guys, is just the emotion and the passion with which they play, and for that to get questioned is something that does bother me.
Did you feel that questioning it after a game like that or a second half like that was unfair?
No, not at all. I think that's what makes it painful to admit that I'm coaching a team that gets brought up, and that question is valid. And like I said, I have no problem walking in and saying, like I told the guys, like, coach is a bad coach, or this is or whatever those things may come with. I can live with all of those. But when someone says something to do with the work ethic or the emotion or the passion with which you play, that would hurt. If anybody ever told me that about one of my teams or just me personally, that would bother me.
Change anything, Coach, when you now have a guy that can play with his back to the basket?
I think it will inevitably change a lot of things. I wish I wish it was going to be something that was very formal and clear cut, but the reality is he hasn't played in a long time. And I have to still go through a getting to know process with him, and he has to go through a getting to know process with me. We've worked with each other, we've practiced with each other, but there's still competition and there's still games, and there's going to be a lot of nuances, not only to his game, but even in my coaching style, and we're both going to kind of go through that. It's game one for him and I, as opposed to game 9 for everybody else.
Are you concerned with the expectations on him or anointing him as
very much so? Yes, it's not. I think Vance has gone through it a little bit in the first 8 games, and I think he's now going to get that next. It's part of the territory when you come to play basketball for the Lobos. That comes with it. But just watching how that's kind of unfolded with guys here previously since I've been here, it's something I'm concerned about. It's not necessarily anything that he inherently has amongst himself that I think is something that makes me worry more. But I worry about it for all these kids, and just wanting them to succeed in their own way, and sometimes extra additional pressure maybe kind of impacting that a little bit.
Just kind of on the flip side too, you've seen him play, you've seen him practice. I mean, you think he could be a positive scorer? what you need right now?
Yeah, he's come a long way. If anybody watched him here work out last year, and to where he's come to now is just night and day. His body, the way he's moving, everything. He's come a long way, and I think that's even given him a much better spirit here of late. Just feeling confident about how far he's kind of come. The reality is, when you add someone of his size and his caliber, it's going to make an impact on the game. So. Is that going to be in game 1 or game 2 or game 3? I have no idea. We're going to go out there. We're going to coach him as best we can. He's a mid-year transfer, which kind of makes it a little unique anyways. And we're just going to do the best job we can kind of managing that process.
The assumption is that he's a 5. I mean, is he going to be a 5, and would him and Vlad ever be on the floor together?
Very possible for them to play together. Our bigs, we kind of play as tandems, and there are times last year you saw some smaller tandems where it was McQuatch and Sam out there together, and then times you saw Joe and Vlad out there together. So, we're just going to kind of look for the best big man combos we can find, and that's a process we're just starting. We've all through the preseason mixed those guys up, where if you've seen us play live, Vlad and Carlton will be on the same team together, and then times obviously where they're not. So we'll just kind of play around with that and see where it takes us.
Does he help you in your running game the way we've seen him throw that outlet pass in the Cherry Silver game?
Yeah.
I mean, does he help you get up the floor?
I think he helps us in a few ways directly to what we're trying to do. One, it limits other people's minutes, and just having an extra body to take up minutes, now brings down somebody who maybe played 27 minutes in a game, and you're going, gosh, and now maybe that's whatever that happens to be, 21 or 19, and hopefully those will be more productive minutes. It's kind of like a good starting pitcher in the rotation that just eats up minutes, and that's kind of the first way I'm looking at it. You're adding a very quality basketball player that's just going to eat up minutes that not only are good for him, but I think it's going to make other people's minutes better as well. So that, to me, is the first advantage to the way we play, and a guy that can just kind of soak up some minutes. The other thing I think definitely is going to bring is a better 2-point percentage at both ends of the floor. I think just having a big that can consistently finish around the rim with his size and strength will improve our ability to finish around the rim, which we're kind of having issues with. And I think he'll protect the rim for us as well, to have somebody of that size and length around the rim. Really, we're like, people talk a lot about Joe and the things he brought. Joe brought 60 or so blocks last year, and just getting a guy around the rim that I think can change shots. To me, when I look at Carlton off the bat, that's what he brings to us. A guy that's going to eat some minutes and make us better overall, and a guy that I think will help us offensively at the rim and defensively at the rim as well.
Well, one of the things Joe did was when they did break the press in the 2-on-1 situations, he seemed to be really good at understanding that.
Sure.
And I would assume that that's a responsibility for Carlton as well.
Very much so.
Important.
Yeah, getting that shot blocker at the back is enormous in anything. I actually thought a lot of those reactions, we spent so much time on that in the Colorado game, where really that was the best we've been this year as far as getting back at the back of the press, and most of our turnovers actually came at the back of the press as opposed to the front of the press. But just adding someone of his length at the back of it, and hopefully feel and IQ as well, will help our press as well.
And then with the press, it seemed like there was a little bit more pressure when they did inbounds the ball, and then I thought I saw like even a 2-2-1 at a certain time for a quick period or whatever. Is that something that evolves as the season progresses, like little wrinkles to what you do with that?
Very much so. We have been playing around with that press really over the last couple of weeks and doing some different things, putting some people in some different places in it, taking a big off the ball, leaving guards up. A lot of things go into that, what our foul situation is, who's in the game for the other team, and then what we think will give us kind of the best chance of success in that possession. But those are definitely things we've been looking at, yep.
How was finals week? You guys have any surprises?
No negative surprises. We're still in them. We had 3 guys with a math exam right now. I think we've got 2 more guys still with stuff to do before Sunday. So I think we're about 75-80% done. No surprises grade wise on the we're in trouble mode. So hopefully we'll just keep kind of chipping away.
That wouldn't affect Sunday though. Like, I mean, grades wouldn't, if they're still doing stuff, you guys wouldn't have.
You're right. It wouldn't. I happened at Colorado State a few years ago. I don't think it would affect. This is obviously very theoretical because this isn't happening, but I don't think it would happen till whenever classes start in January. 'Cause I think Colorado State had it a few years ago, and a bunch of guys got ineligible, and they kept playing even though.
And I didn't even necessarily mean that. I know they kept playing players when they knew they would be
Yeah.
eligible at the start of the next semester. I just mean, would you even know the results of whatever these guys are still finishing by Sunday?
No,
project
most
or
of the we worked. Carlton's last grade got posted today, I believe. So he was the only one that it really mattered because we needed to get his grades posted. The rest of them, they're just kind of coming in slowly. So I'd say we have probably 30% of the grades overall of final posted
I know
grades.
you don't know the numbers, but you did have a GPA issue last spring.
Yep.
That resolved in your mind?
I don't know. I mean, based on how the semester's been going and where we're at, we've been in pretty good shape. There really isn't anyone that we're overly concerned about. That semester, we had, unfortunately, 2 or 3 guys go into some pretty bad spots.
Neither one of your 2 seniors is graduating this semester, right?
No. Dane will have, I believe, 12 hours in the spring, and I think Anthony is 6, something around there. Yeah.
Anything else?
Yep.
Now that Carlton Braves going to be playing, do you have to do something special with Demchek, like sit him down and kind of tell him where he's going or what he's doing, because it's going to change?
Yeah, Jeff asked, like, well, not really. Like, we just play 2 forwards, so those 2 forwards can be 2 of any combination of guys, and they already have roles of where they're going to be. The only thing it would ever really, the only guy we've ever adjusted for a little bit is Vlad with our press. That's really the only thing. Offensively, it really wouldn't change anything. It would really just be the defensive end of things and who might actually be on the ball. And Vlad's the only guy since I've been here that we've ever made adjustments for that. So Carlton so far has actually been pretty good and lively and active at the top of a press. So at this point, really, it wouldn't change anything unless at some point Carlton evolves and we say, you know what, maybe we don't want him as the front, and we have to make some adjustments to get him out of there, kind of like we do with Vlad.
He allows you to play 4 out and 1 in.
Carlton has that potential for sure. I think if you watched us play last game, we're trying to maybe segue more into an inside-out game right now. I thought we were getting just a little heavy perimeter-oriented, and our bread and butter, especially even now getting Carlton back even more so, is we've got to get the ball inside, and we've got to utilize our size and get to the paint, and we've got to finish those plays now, and now we got to get to the free throw line as well.
And I realize we haven't seen him play yet, and we don't know exactly where he is, maybe you do, but if he is effective, if they will start running people at him, it should open up your outside shooting.
Yeah, I mean, ideally, we have more than that to do that. Ideally, we're going to be able to wear people down inside as a unit with Vlad, with Corey, with Vance, like with bigger guys down there. Like I said, he becomes just a starter that eats a lot of minutes, and we can just over the course of 80 minutes at 2 positions just really wear on people down around the rim. So that's the idea right now. That's the idea we're going with. Carlton's unique in that he can shoot. He's got a very good looking shot. He should be hopefully a very good free throw shooter for us. And as the season evolves, if we're going to work on some little wrinkles of things, we will. But for now, particularly just to get him going early on, the idea is going to be get him around the rim, get him comfortable. The kid hadn't played in a long time, so we'll just kind of try and ease him in as best we can.
Just one more on Carlton. The year and a half, you even taking Carlton took a lot, and I know you've spoken to that a little bit. A lot of the guys you have, for whatever reason, were sort of viewed as second chance guys, maybe, be it transfers or for whatever reason. What's the mindset on what a kid has to do to convince you that they're worth taking a chance on?
Yeah. He was one. There's no doubt about that. I've talked at length when he got here about all the things I had to put in place because of the things that maybe I had heard or what he had actually gone through or even done, that I felt because it was mid-semester, I had to say, okay, we can do this, but here are going to be the various conditions, and I did that. But I think when you really go back and do the background on him, and I'm talking background, I'm talking prior Arizona State, prior Kansas, and you know about Babe, but talking to his high school coach and just that experience and the people around him back then, there was a lot of good there. There was like a lot of good there that I believed in, and then in spending time with him, I really started to believe in. And that doesn't mean that some other things about him may not be accurate, may not be true, but I thought even underneath that and behind all of that, there was a lot of good there. There was a lot of potential. There was a lot of hope, and I felt that I was willing to go forward with that. And I think we all have that to some extent in life. I have that as a father, husband, coach, student, teacher, whatever. We've all made mistakes. We've all done things, but I think underneath those mistakes that may happen on the surface or percolate to the surface, if there's some goodness under there, if there's some things that you can really lean on, I think we're all willing to kind of look at that, and that's what inevitably kind of got me to where let's do this with Carlton.
Did anyone tell you don't take him?
I don't know if anybody went that far. I don't say, hey, don't do this or don't do that. I've had that, in my career to one ways or another. But there were some people saying, hey, like, this is what went on, and I don't really see much hope for change. But when I worked my way backwards, all the way back to high school, and really dug into a high school coach that is a West Point guy, and a lot of things that I really felt like his credibility meant something to me when he started selling me, or not selling me, but telling me what Carlton was like for him. I was like, man, that's the kid I want. The question was, could we get him back to that place? And I think we're pretty close. Obviously Carlton and Babe would have a lot more to say about that, but that was what I kind of went off.
First, with that in mind, I think my math is correct, that you have 2 to give and you sign 1. Is this another situation where you could be looking for a transfer with that 1 scholarship?
That's a really good question. I think before the season started, and I think I'd even said it, I felt like our team was going to kind of be in place here for a little bit, and we were probably just going to go take some high school kids and continue to develop. But obviously the way this season started was not how we initially anticipated, with an injury and obviously with a kid that didn't get eligible. And we went from being a very experienced team to a very inexperienced team this current year. And that's probably turned some things over a little bit. I think if you look at last year's team and this year's team and you go through all the stats, there's some differences. Offensively and defensively, some places we're doing a little bit better than, some places we're doing worse than. But the biggest difference is in experience. We went from I think it was 77th most experienced team in the country to this year we're 200 and whatever. And that was not the idea. The idea was to have Carlton and Jaquan in the lineup, older, experienced guys, to keep that experience and then bring in younger kids underneath and let these guys grow. And I think I said it after one of these past games, these freshmen weren't supposed to be playing. It was these older guys that were supposed to be playing. These guys were going to develop. So going into this recruiting class, the thought was, well, these guys will be coming back, and let's find some more kids and let these kids kind of matriculate through the program. Now that these kids are kind of thrown in the fire, we're looking at things going like, okay, well, we don't want to be in this bind again. Let's make sure we've got enough experience across the board to withstand 1 or 2 things that might go the other way. So how we finish up the recruiting class is to be determined. We're looking at kids at a lot of different layers, where I think previously we were looking at kids to kind of help develop our program, where now we're sitting there going like, we can't afford this to happen again. We can't have 1 or 2 things go against you, and now you're sitting there with the 277th youngest team in the country, or 200. Yeah, like I don't want to be there again. So we're going to balance that as best we can. Still might end up being high school kids, or it might be some more older guys to allow us to not have to, unfortunately, go through what we're doing right now.
Anything else? Thanks, Coach.
Thanks, guys. Sorry, Mark, I bumped it up.